Charlie Kemp, thanks for joining us on the Illinois Channel. And we're going to be talking to you about your run for Congress. But right before we start, let me tell the people that we're going to be talking about the election in the 11th Congressional District of Illinois, which the viewers can see there is quite a large swath of territory in the western suburbs. And you have a website that I want to bring up to people's attention right away, charlieincongress.us. People can learn more about you on that website. And here's part of what is on there. This is an extensive part of your background that you have listed on that website. So if people want to learn more about you, they can go and read it for themselves. I'm not going to read all of that to them. But that said, thank you again for joining us. And I just want to begin, as you're running, to my knowledge, you've never run for office, certainly not for Congress before. So why don't you begin by telling us, why is it that you have decided to run for the House of Representatives?
Yes, Terry, thank you for having me. And there's two main reasons why I like to run. First reason is that I was overseas and I was with the U.S. Department of State for a period of time as a Fulbright specialist. We're experts in the area, and my area was international security and also case methods. Well, when I was overseas in the area of various, the Balkans, including that area of Ukraine, Germany, and Kosovo, I started realizing a lot of the countries are trying to defend for democracy. But what really caught my attention is that when I came back home, I started realizing that we're in a position where we have 340 million plus citizens, and it seems like we started giving away our democracy. For example, illegal aliens that are allowed to vote. Bill Foster, who I'm trying to challenge, wants to allow legal aliens to vote. He doesn't even really care if they become U.S. citizens. And when I was overseas talking about democracy, as well as defending and working with NATO forces, people are putting their lives on the line to be able to have this democracy. And I could not believe that our own country was not even making the requirements to defend this democracy. So that's the first reason. The second reason I have is that I believe there's policies that we have missed in being able to defend our country properly. For example, allowing illegal aliens to come under the Security Borders Act of 2023. I think it's important that we allow people to come to our country because I was born in South Korea, came here when I was 5 years old in 1972. And the thing is that we are pretty much a country of immigrants. But the key point is we have to be able to vet them and know who's coming in. We have not been doing that, and we're not enforcing the laws because we have people who are coming in that aren't even checked with their backgrounds. And they're really ghosts at this point. And one of the problems is we have a lot of people who are in the area of gangs as well as people trying to take advantage of our country to, you could say, infiltrate it. And that's why I could understand someone like President Trump saying that we are in an insurgency of people who are enemies of ours who are trying to come into the country and cause chaos. Just look at all the demonstrations we've been having. This is ridiculous because this is a country that has a diversity. However, we have to understand it has to be protected, and we're not protecting the country. So those are the two main reasons. And one other reason that does follow that's been important in my particular community in Illinois 11, in other words, for our congressional district, is family rights and responsibilities. And this is something that's became a big problem because with homeschooling, as well as what is being taught, is not always what's supported by the parents. And the parents should have ultimate decision to be able to decide how their kids are raised and what they should study. So I think those are strong points, and that's one of the reasons that I said I need to run, and a lot of people supported it. So I have a lot of support to run in this particular congressional election in 2026.
You mentioned that you were born in South Korea but raised in Illinois. You came here at 5 years of age. So the preponderance, I would suspect if you have any recollections of South Korea, they're rather vague since you were so young. But immigration, of course, as you know, as everyone knows, has been one of the big issues of the last 10 years. The border being open, President Trump building the border wall, now sealing the border. And we have all these issues, demonstrations going on in Chicago over ICE and it's very current. You bring a different perspective, having come from a native South Korea, even though you have, I think, an American mindset being raised in Illinois. But you also have a perspective of having had quite a lot of experience overseas. And again, people can go to your website and read the background. So that's a setup for just say, what is your perspective? Because it would be different than mine, who grew up entirely within the United States, on this issue of immigration and how we should handle it as a nation. Give us your thoughts on that.
I would like to give you a quick summary of my upbringing in America.
Sure.
And you're exactly correct, Terry, as we spoke before. I came here in 1972, and it wasn't the best time because if you remember what war that was, as we spoke before, and you do, it's the Vietnamese War.
Yeah.
And during the Vietnamese War, the Charlies were the North Vietnamese. So everybody thought I was VC Charlie. So they thought that, oh, there goes VC Charlie. Don't ever play with him. And there was a game that we used to play back in those days in recess, as you probably know. When I was in the area of Woodridge, I went to grade school there, and I went to 4 different schools because I had so much problems of being able to get along with the kids. And they even told my mother, maybe you should move them to a different school because we can't control all the kids. Well, the game we used to play at times was called Red Rover, let Charlie come over. The problem is no one wanted to call me because they thought I was the enemy. And I was trying to tell them, I'm from Korea. You should be watching MASH with Hawkeye and Radar. We are a great success story of America, but kids don't understand. They sit there and they see me and the war was going on. So this perception became reality. It's a lot like politics, Terry. One of the biggest problems I find in our political environment is that a lot of people believe things, but they don't find out the facts. I think that's why so many people are discouraged from even watching the news these days, because they don't know what to believe anymore. And that's the job of a representative. For example, as a congressional representative, as they say, we are supposed to inform the people, who especially our constituents, and we are supposed to tell them what is going on. That is our duty to do that. The duty of so-called voters is to listen, to tell us what they want. And this is a thing that we've lost in our political system. And why I try to state this is so important is because when I started growing up, and I was at the point where I even turned homeless for a period of time. I came from a very good environment in Korea. I had servants and maids. I had diplomatic grandparents who were diplomats as well as ambassadors. So I had a great life. I was learning English and French at the age of 2 because those were the 2 main languages in the world. If you wanted to work at The Hague, at the United Nations, you needed to prepare in those languages. I was fortunate enough to have good tutoring as well as prep myself for international career. However, when I came to America, we tried to start martial arts studios, especially during the 70s. You had a lot of things with the Kung Fu fighting and Bruce Lee, so it was a big theme. My parents also tried to start a liquor store. We failed at both, and we lost pretty much all of our funds, which means now we make it or we pretty much stay here and perish. So the key point was I started realizing America doesn't mean that it's something land of opportunities without earning it. And that's what I learned. You need to earn it. But one thing our country gives is that opportunity to earn it. You could fail 1,000 times and still have the chance to make something. And this is what makes our country great. This is why people come from all over the world to be able to be in our country, a country that we have been able to have the benefit as our forefathers has created. But I think we've gone away from those thoughts of such as John Hancock, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Ben Franklin. They had the perception that we are supposed to be people who have the right to have liberty, life, and a pursuit of happiness. We've lost a lot of that concept. It seems that a lot of our politicians have started going towards the point of self interest. They're more worried about getting elected, for example. I know politicians who actually get into Congress, and 6 months later, they're already working on fundraising for their next election. They should be reading these bills. They should be talking to the people to be able to tell them what is going on to get their perspective, because that's their duty. I consider that as the main responsibility of a Congress member. And we've forgotten a lot of that. Look at the shutdown we're having, Terry. We're at a point where people can't even be able to know what's going on with the government because our government is arguing with each other, not realizing the future of our country is at stake while they're bickering. Just because of a policy of certain things with healthcare about something with illegal aliens being able to get funds when they're not even US citizen paying taxes. And that comes to the point why I got the opportunity. It's kind of ironic, but I ended up playing football and I made the A team and we're ranked fifth in state over in our area of Downers Grove. And it's a big deal to be on a state team and be able to be a starter. I was both starter, offense, and defense. And it was a big deal. Now, everybody loved me and wanted me to sit at their lunch table. I wasn't this VC Charlie anymore. So it works both ways. And it gives me an opportunity. And that's why I appreciate you allowing me to be able to speak on this particular interview because people get to know me better. And eventually I ended up working on trade diplomacy with the White House at a period. I also worked in Congress for a period, being the co-chair of the Business Economic
As
Council.
a staffer
And
or something. I mean, not as obviously a member. You worked in Congress.
no, right. I worked in the member as an advisory, correct. And it wasn't per se on the payroll, but I was on the payroll from 2018, 2023, which I just finished with the U.S. Department of State as a Fulbright specialist and also making the stance to be able to be a goodwill ambassador for now for Veteran Affairs. And I'm
I
doing
would
that
say
until
the
2028.
viewers know that I've worked at C-SPAN in the past in Washington covering Congress. I only bring that up because, like you, when you spend time in D.C., when you've worked around the members of Congress, you've understood the process. You know the lay of the land, and you kind of know the mindset, let's say, on Capitol Hill. So you're not going to have a Mr. Smith goes to Washington kind of experience where you're dazzled and have never seen it before. So it is interesting, I think, with Congress when you look through. Obviously, there are lawyers, and you're a lawyer. You have a legal background as well, but we want to have people who bring a variety of experiences to the job in Congress so that you have some who are small business people, some who maybe had worked as a union representative, some who are farmers, some who are doctors, etc. And I think having that, we talk about diversity, I think it is good to have some diversity of thought so that we don't have a Congress made up of nothing but lawyers or nothing but farmers or nothing but, printers as I used to be. But with that all said, you do have a wealth of experience. I'm curious when you go out and have your constituent meetings, you're having some kind of gatherings where you talk to people about your candidacy. What is on the mind of the people in the 11th district that you're asked questions about, and they'll ask you about where are you on this issue, where are you on that issue? What are some of the primary issues that you're being asked about?
I appreciate that question because it is very important. Two areas that have been on a lot of people's mind in the area of Illinois 11 is that one, we're wondering why is it that we can't sustain a government to be able to protect the American community? For example, the legal aliens. We're even having ICE, as you heard in Chicago a lot of times, and ICE has been out here for a particular reason. The reason is we have a lot of illegal aliens that are in Chicago and they have not been vetted properly. And there's robberies, there's cases of rapes, there's cases of people who literally are let go. That's also because of our state regulation that allows safety. And this is a huge problem. We need to be able to enforce our laws. We have laws to enforce the protection of our community, and that's not happening. Second issue that seems to be of great concern is with our kids. And they are our future. So it's so important that we realize the need to guide our kids and to be able to give them the necessary resources to empower them to make a better future. And we haven't been doing that. Why I state this is, for example, things that are being taught in the classroom under the area of House Resolution 650. It has stated it was part of the Parents' Bill of Rights. Now it's called the Family Rights and Responsibility Act of 2025. It's also under the Senate 2004. And the thing is that they are trying to allow parents to look over curriculums before something is taught, because the parents should decide what their kids are being taught. Even if there's a discrepancy, let the parents discuss it. It shouldn't be made by school administrators nor people who are trying to assume this is the best way to teach. It is a community, and the power has to be back to the people. And that's one of our biggest problems. And just to note on what you said, yes, I did study in various areas, especially international economics and politics, but I was fortunate enough to study at Harvard in the area of Harvard Business School and Harvard Law School. And I did do very well there, top 1% of my class at other programs, and #1 in international law overseas. So the thing is that I do have a background. I got an opportunity also to work in the area of legal aid during COVID to help out. Prior to that, when I got out of the area of law school, I got to work over at the courthouses, federal court systems, and the appellate courts. So I do have a background. I did work in Congress. I ended up winning an award called the National Republican Congressional Leadership Award for passing some of the best conservative law. So you're exactly right, Terry. If I go into Congress, I could represent the people with my capability of knowing what's going on and how to pass law in proper procedure.
I want to remind the people that we're talking about running for Congress in the 11th District of Illinois, and you can see there the map of where that concerns. I think everyone is impacted by the votes. We have major bills being passed in Congress with such a slim Republican majority at the moment that frankly every seat matters, because the Congress is almost equally divided right now. And so even though a lot of us aren't going to be living in the 11th District of Illinois, who you are, who the candidates are in all of these districts, frankly matters, because the big beautiful bill passed by just the slimmest of margins, but allowed the tax cuts of the 2017 to be extended so that none of our taxes are going to be going up, as they would have had we not passed the president's so-called big beautiful bill. All the taxes would have gone up in January had that not passed. So everyone ought to be paying attention as we go through these election issues and talk to the candidates. And I know I promised I wouldn't keep you too long here. I know myself, I could probably talk to you for a whole nother hour on issues. I would recommend people go back to your website, and let me just bring that up again. It is charlieincongress.us, because they ought to read your background, your education, the things you've worked on are quite extensive, and I'm glad I'm not running against you, because while I have a master's degree, I don't compare it with your background, and it would be hard on an academic level to be competitive with you. but it's good to talk to you. Before we close it out, let me give you the last word, just as you talk to the potential voters in Chicago's 11th district. And obviously, there's going to be Republican voters, there's going to be Democrat voters, and the independents. So why don't you tell them why you should be worthy of their vote when we get to the election just about a year from now?
I like to answer that in two facets because you brought an important point. I was fortunate enough to start a doctorate program, even though I started my master's going towards a PhD at Harvard. I switched because I ended up working for the government going overseas. And then the thing is that I had the opportunity to start the global business doctorate program for Regent University. Regent University is a preempt Christian university, and I learned a lot about the Christian faith. And I was fortunate to meet Pat Robinson and help start their doctorate program in global business. And why I say that's important is because, to answer part of your question, is that I believe we need to have faith again. Now, there's people out there that I understand there's different religions. If it's Christianity, if it's the area of Judaism, I have a Jewish godmother, so you don't have to tell me half of my family is Buddhist, so even Muslim faith. But if you talk about something of different religion, if it doesn't matter if it's Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Moses, there is some sort of foundation, and we've lost that in our country. We need to bring back a foundation, and it doesn't matter if you are Republican, Democrat, Independent. We have to understand we are a community. And if you care about your country, you have to care about your community. And that's something that we haven't been doing. I've been elected Republican. I'm the only one actually of my opponents right now in the primary that is an elected Republican. Even if it is a committee member, I do have downtown Naperville, which is a nice area. And the thing is that I have learned it's so important to participate. Every one of your viewers who votes has a matter in our future, which goes to the second point that you're talking about. Yes, I've been fortunate enough to learn about our country and the certain kind of method of democracy. But there's a difference, I believe, when you're an American or a citizen. And what I like to emphasize is we need to be citizens again. When I mean citizens, it means that you participate, you take an interest in the future of our country. So when you're deciding to vote, it's so important, as you know, Terry, one vote can make a difference. As we discussed in the past, one vote made the difference of people getting drafted for World War II, which was costing thousands of lives and affected millions of people all over the world. So when you think that you are a particular party, remember, are you a citizen? When I was halfway around the world, working in the area with the U.S. Department of State and also with different countries with NATO forces, it didn't matter where I was. I was a U.S. citizen. And as a U.S. citizen and being American, we have to remember that we control the future. In our great country, we still have the capability to have that right. Where, like I said in the past, when I was over there just in 2023, for example, Kosovo has 2 million people. They're fighting for their lives because NATO forces may leave in 2028. They're right next to Russia. They are an annex that broke off from Siberia, who has the support of Russia. So if Siberia attacks with Russia's help, there's a good chance that what's going to happen is within 2 months, like South and North Korea, Kosovo could be lost. Well, we're in danger as our country right now because there's chaos amongst us. We're creating our own doom if we don't start appreciating the democracy we have. And that's why I say your vote counts. And when we're talking about your vote, it means being a citizen. And that's why I think you should vote for me, because I will represent the people. I will be an excellent representative because I will listen and I will take action. If I don't do the job, you could quote me on this, Terry. You could come yourself to my office and say, "You're not doing what you told me, Charlie," and I will not run again. You got it on tape, and I mean it, because I don't believe you should be doing something if you can't get the job done, because that, what to me, is honor, and it is my duty to serve the people.
Well, Charlie Kim, I think we talked enough that people get an idea of what you're about. They can go to your website, as we've shown, and charlieincongress.us. And I don't know if you post like where you're going to be having your meetings or whatever, but they're going to be there. And I suspect on your website they can reach out and say, I want to help, I want to volunteer, or I want more information. And maybe your campaign can get in touch. We still have, about 12 months before the election. We're approaching November, and it will be in early November of next year when we decide in the midterms who's going to control the House of Representatives. And we'll have to see at that time. But maybe we can talk to you again between now and then and discuss some of the other issues that are pertaining at that time in a little more depth.
Yes, sounds good, Terry. I appreciate it, and you're very right on a lot of things. I respect your judgment. You have a lot of insight, and I think that that's something that we have to start doing again as citizens. So I appreciate this interview, and people can call me, they could email me, and I will respond, because I believe that as a congressional representative, you need to address your constituents, so-called voters. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Charlie. Good talking to you. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.